And there are people like Joe in other states that will provide checks and balances so that we can stop what's going on and maybe reverse the trend. And so we can take the House, change some of, actually block a lot of what's going on right now. And Joe and the like, all the new congressmen coming up, can really make a change for America. So I'd like to introduce Joe Kent.
Well, thank you guys so much for being out here. Thanks to our host. This is a great venue. This is like, just a classic venue to have a town hall at. So before I get into it too much, I'm going to turn over the mic to Joel, let Joel talk, State Representative Joel McIntyre, and then if Jim Walsh trickles in, Jim will talk as well too, because what we're facing right now is an absolute assault by the radical left at the state level, at the federal level. I think everybody who's running for office right now, there's no non-essential seats, so we have to get all of our friends and family to get out and to vote Republican at every level if the Republic's going to survive. I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, but that's what I believe. So I'm going to turn it over to Joel real quick, and then we'll jump right back into it.
Joe, I am Joel, and Jim is Cummings, and then we have Senator Jeff Wilson. So it's Jeff, Jim, Joel, and Joe. Or Jace, if you will. Yeah. So I wanted to just impress upon you some of my thoughts and opinions as to how important this election is. I have my own race that I'm running for. I'm running again to be your state representative for Southwest Washington, along with my seatmate, Jim Walsh, who will be here shortly, and hopefully be able to share a few words with you as well. If you notice the national polls, if you follow those and look those up, they're really all over the place. One day it's one thing, one day it's another, and we're not really sure what side of the coin things are going to flip on in terms of the national standings. But what that means is that whichever political party gets the most congressmen, the most representatives, is going to choose the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House holds enormous power. You think that members of a legislature would be powerful, but really, when they elect who their leader is, and they've got that gavel, nothing gets past them, and they say what goes in the chamber. End of story. Who gets that gavel may come down to this man right here. Think about that, how important our activism is here in Wahkiakum County. That sometimes some of these congressional races for our district have been decided by a few dozen votes. And sometimes it's gone our way, and sometimes it hasn't gone our way. And when it hasn't gone our way, I feel so much shame and dread knowing I could have just knocked doors for half an hour, or told my neighbor and passed a few signs out to my neighbors, and that would have been the difference. That would have made all the difference. And so I hate losing races. Anyway, but most of all, hate losing them by double-digit numbers, by 50 votes or 75 votes. It's unacceptable. And the way that I vision every race is I vision that it's that close, even if it's not. Even if Joe's going to blow it out of the water, he is. He's going to do fantastic. What is the right mentality to have? It is the mentality of the football team that has 2 minutes left and they're down by a field goal and a touchdown with a 2-point conversion. That's the intensity that we have to have. The clock is ticking. We need to cause a fumble. We need to pick up the ball. We need to run it into the end zone. All the way down, go for 2, onside kick, pick it up, get a field goal, win the game. That's the mentality we have to have. We can't slack at all, because when we think we've got it in the bag, we lose. And you know what? Actually, the analysts, if you remember back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost, remember how good that was? Yeah. I remember those. I still watch, so this is how bad I am. Sometimes, if you go on YouTube and type in election night coverage, 2016, it's a 9-hour YouTube video for you watching on ABC, CNN, NBC, or whatever. Watch their faces throughout the night. It is so great, because they start out so smug. It's going to be so great to have Hillary as the president. She's going to do so many great things. And then throughout the night, the smile just starts to go as the numbers come out. And then by the end, they're like, what has happened to our country? And it's just so great. Anyway, I digress. The reason why she lost in large part is because the narrative at the time on the other side was that they had it in the bag and no one had to actually turn out. People literally said, I But the way I see it, we have to be hyper intense. And here's why Joe Kent is going to be such a great advocate for our country and our nation. I have a little bit, and only a little bit, in common with Joe, and that is he served in the military. I've been 11 years in the United States Marine Corps Reserve and deployed overseas twice. And so we have seen things in the military, and that when we're in uniform, you hold a very special and strange position where you are obligated to carry out the orders of the officers above you and the President of the United States. And there are methods and processes which you have to go through if you want to see changes, but it's very difficult when you're in uniform to make that change. But he has seen, and I have seen, the worst that the military-industrial complex has done to our young men and women, and what it's done around the world, decreasing the morale of the members in uniform, needlessly blowing tens, maybe hundreds of billions of your tax dollars needlessly, not for good quality training, but on needless projects. He knows what those are, and I know what those are, but I'm still in uniform, so I can't talk about it. Or if I do, I have to go the long way around through Congress and everything to get, something, an inquiry done. When Joe gets there, he knows exactly those programs which are wasting your money. He knows exactly the fruitless endeavors which our military has been put into for nothing more than making certain corporations rich, to sell weapons and munitions. That's it. Not to bring freedom, not to bring liberty, not for justice, not for hope. Building up a dictator just so we can cut him down to the knees and then sell a bunch of weapons from some company. And it's very easy to see. It's hard for someone like me to be able to do anything about that from my position. But the reason why I'm so excited to see Joe get in there is because he will put that as one of the forefront things as a matter of business. And it's so important because without national security, proper national security, what do we have, right? So it is so important that we rebuild our military properly and well, that we have a leaner, meaner program. We have soldiers and Marines, airmen, and sailors which are well-trained, tough as nails, and ready to break stuff and just kick butt all day long when it's necessary for us. So anyway, Representative Walsh is now in the House. It's going to go to you next, and then you get to introduce Joe Kent. So,
all right, okay, you can do that.
And you don't need the microphone if you don't want to. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, let's work hard for Joe, because I know for a fact he's going to work hard for us. Thank you.
Joel, thanks. Well, that's just-in-time inventory, I think. Thanks for coming out. You guys know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a critical election. They always say it, but I think that this one's particularly important for the federal races because we can really flip DC, the legislature, the Congress, and the Senate. In Olympia, we've got the battle going on, and frankly, I mean, we'll make some headway, but in DC, they can really get control of the Capitol, legislature. And that's so important because we have a vacuum right now in the Oval Office of the White House. And that vacuum is being filled with not good stuff. And you're seeing it in your lives every day. You know what it is. I mean, the price of gas is just one indicator, but it's the one that everyone can see. And what's happened right now, some of it's happening out of Olympia, but right now, that spike we're seeing just this week, last 2 weeks or so, that's federal. That's mismanagement of the Strategic Reserve and mismanaging the governance piece of dealing with that part of the economy. And it's not getting better. I mean, they're gonna just lie like thieves, the Democrats, about what's going on with the economy. And it starts with the president and it goes to the current speaker who's not long for speakerdom. They're already talking about her next job after she loses speaker, that she's going to be the ambassador to Italy. which will be really interesting, because Italy just got a really cool new prime minister who isn't going to give much truck to the former Speaker of the House. So, they're already talking about what's next for Pelosi, so that's not even, I mean, I know you still want to talk about Pelosi, Joe, but she's kind of yesterday's news. The real challenge that Joe's going to face is what now? What next? Have any of you ever seen the great old Robert Redford movie, The Candidate? It's about politics and a guy running for this, in his case, the U.S. Senate. It's a fictional movie, but it was pretty good. And the last line of the movie is that the candidate, played by Robert Redford, wins, gets elected senator, and then he looks at his brain trust and he says, "What now?" Well, I don't think you're going to have that problem with Joe Kent. He knows what now. And that's important because we've got to restore a lot of what's good, right? I mean, that's what we're doing in Olympia. That's what Joe's going to do in D.C. And what's good? Good is communities that are reasonably safe. An economy that may have, peaks and dips, that's natural in economies, but it's not crazy. It's at least somewhat stable. And what's good too in our area is simple stuff, like infrastructure. I've been watching Joe's campaign, and this gal is running against him, and what she's talking, she doesn't even know what she's talking about. But I was thinking, she likes to call Joe extreme. Well, what we need in this area is some extreme bridges, right? She never talks about stuff like that. I mean, we need basic infrastructure. What does government do well? Not a lot. But what does it do well when it does things well? Roads and bridges. I mean, simple infrastructure stuff. And you know what's not infrastructure? Solar energy is not infrastructure. Windmills, God love them, they're not infrastructure. Infrastructure are those things, those external public goods that everyone benefits from. And when you get too fancy about what infrastructure is, you start screwing up. And this Inflation Reduction Act law that looks like it's going to be Nancy Pelosi's last great achievement, and I use the term great with very sarcastic marks around it. It doesn't do anything, you know this, it doesn't do anything to actually fight inflation, but it pumps a ton of your money into green energy projects, which are fine. I mean, I don't mind solar, I don't mind wind, but when the government is the only buyer of what those projects are selling, your money's not being used effectively. And we see it all the time. I don't want to drive you crazy before you listen to the guy you came to listen to, but I'll give you one last example of how governments screw things up and we need to simplify and get them out of the way. So Inslee's last piece now is no gas or diesel vehicles after 2030. And he says we got to do this now because California's doing it, and we pledged that we would follow whatever California does. Well, that whole thing is a crock, right? The language in the bill that passed that says we got to follow California is really narrow, and it only applies to certain, emissions standards. It doesn't mean you have to follow them off the cliff and say no vehicles with gas or diesel after 2030. It's a stupid thing. It's a talking point. They use it for fundraising in their political world, that they're committed to this. But no serious person believes that that is an effective policy. Why do they do it? Like I say, it's sanctimony. It's selling tickets to fundraisers and things. It's not real. And what we need to do is we need to get Olympia and DC back to focusing on what's real and effective. And it's going to be a battle in Olympia, but I really think in DC they're going to do it. And Joe's going to be part of that. And it will be what's next. And I guess I'll let him talk about what's next, what now. But I've known Joe for a few years now, and I am absolutely confident that he will be an effective congressman back in DC, and someone who will, and I think he'll be a lightning rod. I mean, he's gonna be a change maker, and that will mean taking some attacks. Okay, fine, whatever. That's part of the game. But I think he will make you proud to live in this part of Washington and to be represented by this guy in DC. I think he'll do a good job for us, and I think he will move the frame. You heard the term Overton window? That's the kind of frame in which government actions are debated. I think Joe will help change that frame, that window, in a good direction for everybody. So, the person you came to hear tonight, Joe Kent.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Jim and Joel. It's a great introduction. So, just up front, I'll talk for a little bit about the campaign. Give you guys kind of a campaign update. Talk about what I'm going to do day one when we get to Washington, D.C., what those first 2 years look like. Because these first 2 years are going to be absolutely critical. It's going to be our chance to stop the Biden-Pelosi agenda dead in their tracks, to give us enough space to take our country back in 2024. So I'll talk about that, and then I'll take questions. So anything I don't hit in this initial barrage of me talking, just go ahead and ask me towards the end. So right now, as you guys all know, I'm a Republican nominee. We got done with a hard-fought primary between quite a few of us, long hard-fought primary. Right now, the big goal is to consolidate the conservative movement, the Republican Party. Heidi St. John, who I fought a really hard primary against, she went out and endorsed me right after Jamie conceded. So that's really helped to unify the movement. So right now, we're really focusing on trying to reach out to a lot of Jamie Guerrero Butler's supporters. I think the vast majority of them are going to come over to our side. I've had some great conversations with a lot of them. But we really want to reach out to them and just let them know what the stakes are. I'd encourage all of you, I feel like in here I'm in a pretty America First, hardcore, Trump type of crowd, but really to reach out to your friends that are independents, that are Democrats, that may have supported Jamie, and that are apprehensive about the guy that was, a crazy guy in the military and then he's endorsed by President Trump. And I understand that. But I want to reach out to those people because the stakes are so high right now, what's happening with our country and what the Democrats have done to our country. It's the Democrats at every level, and this is what I like to point out. What's affecting our country right now, inflation, our economy being absolutely crushed, this is all 100% because of what the Democrats have done. Joe Biden, day one, he came in. Everybody remembers 2 years ago what the gas prices were. And everybody understands at a very intimate level now how when he killed off our energy independence, gas prices shot up. That drove the cost of everything up. It's very simple. At the grocery store, price tags go way up, the cost of all goods go way up, and more of your paychecks being eaten away. Meanwhile, at the same time they killed off the energy, they continue to spend money. This Inflation Reduction Act that my opponent said that she would gladly sign on to had she been an elected official, it has 87,000 more IRS agents. And for some reason, these 87,000 more IRS agents needed to be trained to use lethal force, which basically when I read the job description, I was like, this sounds more like what I used to do in the Army than being an accountant at the IRS. So that was weird, but it also was, they were going to start targeting people that made less than $100,000. That's 87,000 more IRS agents to come after us while we're being absolutely crushed by inflation. They put new taxes on U.S. energy production, so further crippling our ability to be energy independent. They continue to spend money with Build Back Better, more COVID relief, just absolutely crazy amounts of spending that just driven us off a debt cliff. And so what do? They continue to print more and more money. And so right now, with the economy that the Democrats have created from Biden to Pelosi to Inslee, because all this has a trickle-down effect, 1 month of all of our wages this year is going to be stolen solely from inflation alone. So 1 month of your pay is gone just paying for inflation. And there's no ceiling to it too. We saw that gas prices, they kind of fluctuated a little bit, but now they're back up. Because Biden, he went to the OPEC, he went to the Middle East and said, hey, can I get some sort of deal on oil and gas? And they snubbed them. They said, absolutely not. They said they're going to cut their production, and that's going to make a scarcity on the market. So now gas prices are going to continue to go up. A lot of that geopolitical, but the bottom line is because we're weak here, we're weak on the world stage with Biden at the helm, and with the Democrats. And what I say is every single American right now, if you look at the economy, you understand that you're absolutely being crushed right now. If you're working class, if you're in the middle class, this affects your daily life. This is affecting how you're going to buy presents for your kids. Christmas coming up here. This affects your 401k. This affects your retirement. And here's the thing. There's not one Democrat at the federal level, and I don't hear any here at Olympia in the state level, I don't hear one Democrat saying, hey, this is wrong and we need to fix this. The energy production is very simple. They could turn back on U.S. energy production. They easily could. They could put some spin on it and say, well, Trump messed this up and we fixed it now it's back on, if they cared about the American people. But I don't even hear one Democrat saying that we need to stop this. Now, Republicans, we're a diverse bunch, and we have our own internal fights. But you can find some form of dissent within the Republican Party. Republicans don't always all say the same thing, and that has its negative side sometimes. But also, you can understand that you can vote for a wide variety of Republicans. Democrats are not that way. What the Democrats are trying to do right now, especially my opponent, they're trying to say like, hey, I'm a Democrat. I'm a different kind of Democrat. I'm an independent. I'm a blue dog Democrat. That breed of Democrat, unfortunately, is gone. They don't exist anymore. The Democrats, they get into unison. They do exactly what Biden, Pelosi, and Inslee say. Inflation's a great example. Another great example that everybody's suffering from right now in our district, regardless of whether you live in a rural